said Bouteflika is an Algerian politician and academic. He was an assistant professor at the Houari Boumediene University of Science and Technology. He is the brother and was a special advisor of Abdelaziz Bouteflika in his former role as president of Algeria, on whom he would have had considerable influence, especially after the president suffered a serious stroke in 2013. On May 4, 2019, a month after his brother's resignation, in the context of the 2019 protests in Algeria, he was arrested and provisionally imprisoned in the military prison of Blida awaiting trial. On September 25, 2019, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison for undermining the authority of the army and conspiring against the authority of the state. Said Bouteflika was born in January 1958 in Oujda in Morocco, which was then the base of Wilevi, at the start of the rise of his brother Abdelaziz, then aged 20, with Houari Boumediene, who at the same time was the head of the Wile. He is the youngest of 9 siblings. His father Ahmed died when he was a year old, so he was brought up by his mother, under the tutelage of his brother Abdelaziz, and thereby by Houari Boumediene, who took power through a coup d'etat in 1965. He was a student at the St. Joseph College of the Brothers of Christian Schools in El Bir, then at the high school run by the Jesuits. Like some sons of leaders, before the final closure of these establishments, a graduate of the National Polytechnic School of Algiers, he arrived in Paris in 1983 to prepare a doctorate in computer science. His brother, ousted from the estate of Boumediene, joined him, accused of embezzlement. Said Bouteflika holds a postgraduate doctorate from Pierre et Marie Curie University. His main center of interest is pattern recognition, a field in which he defends his thesis. In 1987, the Bouteflikas were able to return to Algeria, and Said followed his brother back. He became a teacher and a university union activist. He married a biologist in El Bir. He lived in a one-floor house with his brother. After his brother Abdelaziz was elected president in 1999, he was appointed special advisor by an unpublished decree. He was officially in charge of the IT department. In this role, he removed other members of the cabinet such as Ali Benflis and Labi Belkir. Said Bouteflika fired the former in 2003 and the latter in 2005. He managed his brother's re-election campaigns in 2004 and 2008. And begins to be presented as a potential successor. He fails to be named vice president. In 2005, Abdelaziz Bouteflika was hospitalized in Paris with an ulcer, which forced him to step back from his duties. As a result, Said's role grew. According to an inhabitant of El Mouradia interviewed by Jeune Afrique, he keeps the agenda of the head of state, intervenes in the appointments of ministers, diplomats, walis, heads of public bodies, and influences the internal life of the FLN. Having become essential to gain access to the president, the special advisor takes de facto management of affairs in El Mouradia. In 2008, he helped his brother get re-elected, putting pressure on businessmen to finance the campaign, and made sure that public contracts were entrusted to relatives. An American cable from that year, released by WikiLeaks, shows Bernard Bargelet indicating that corruption, which traces back to the brothers of Bouteflika, has reached a new peak and is interfering with economic development. Shortly afterwards, several corruption scandals broke out, where his name was mentioned, perhaps at the instigation of the Département du Renseignement et de la Sécurité. In 2013, Abdelaziz Bouteflika was hospitalized in Val de Grace, in Paris. For Jeune Afrique, said Bouteflika remains alone at his brother's bedside, filtering access, giving instructions on the management of the crisis to Prime Minister Abdelmalek Sellal, who must wait 46 days to see the president. Le Matin even affirms that said Bouteflika himself signed 7 decrees of appointment in place of his brother, and that he blocks the other appointments. At the same time, he intervened in the crisis, shaking the FLN in order to impose a relative as Secretary General. Then in the subsequent cabinet reshuffle, journalist and former DRS captain Hicham Aboud, who revealed the seriousness of the president's condition, accused said Bouteflika of running the country by proxy, of having been involved in many corruption cases, and for having persecuted him to silence him. In October of the same year, rumors of succession between the brothers resumed, while the movements opposing him, the DRS and its leader, General Tawfiq continued. This political war is manifested in particular by a new attack by Hicham Aboud, who accused said Bouteflika of massive corruption and drug trafficking, but also of homosexuality, which is illegal in Algeria. Depleted and almost paralyzed, Abdelaziz Bouteflika finally ran for a fourth term in the Algerian Précis.